Why do authors crash out so spectacularly? It is wild the amount of authors that I've seen find themselves embroiled in controversy that they could have avoided by just not talking, by just shutting up. Now, sometimes this is a pretty minor controversy and will hardly affect their sales, but some of them destroy their entire careers and reputations over it. And I think it boils down to just pride and ego. There is like an air of prestige around authorship, but it really shouldn't be that way. Authors can be just as vain and petty and just problematic as anyone else. So I'm going to talk about the consistent patterns I see of authors just nuking their own careers for no reason. So, number one is a failure in marketing. And I think this kind of comes down to just vanity at this point. I see this a lot in the horror niche, especially extreme horror. But I have to assume that this is somewhat done intentionally because it seems like, bad press can be good press. You know how like a big horror movie comes out and then people say, "Oh, it's so disgusting, it's so awful. No one should ever see this. They should ban this." Like that's great for a horror movie. That makes people that like horror movies want to watch this. So if you're an author and people think like, "Wow, this guy's an absolute creep. He's a weirdo. He did this, that, and the third. He's an awful person." That might get some people to be a little bit more interested in what you have to sell. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not really a huge horror guy, so I'm not the one to say. JD Barker is the most recent example. If you haven't heard the news, the tea, he tried to get book talk girlies to pose with his book like in the nude, but that just doesn't make sense to me because where could you post this for to drive traffic? Like most sites are gonna flag that or delete it, so that just whatever. Another one in the horror genre was Matt Shaw, who there was a review from one of his books that he watched definitely. Didn't really comment, didn't really talk about this reviewer, so they didn't think much of it. And then one of his later books, he added them in the acknowledgments, saying like, "Oh, you didn't like that? We'll hope you like this." Yada yada yada. Super creepy, super weird dog. And someone else could. I'll link a video that goes more in depth in this, but his pattern of behavior and what he would write about makes this all the more uncomfortable. Now, all of these revolve around sexism. The next guy, Nate Lemke, didn't really do anything too egregious, but just kind of came off like such a douche. So his idea was to create a series where he would review a book from a female author every day until his book was a NYT bestseller. Um, just not a great strategy to go on TikTok with a very creepy thin mustache and talk down to women about literature. Like just I don't know where you thought that was going to go. I think a lot of this could be avoided if you just ran these ideas past someone. Like I get it. As an author, it is easy to spend all your night and day thinking about ways to promote yourself, ways to promote your book, how you can be promoting on this app and whatever, whatever. A lot of that stress and weight can be taken off your shoulders if you just have a few friends to run ideas past and they can tell you that is a great idea or maybe tweak this or dude, that is stupid. Touch grass immediately, please. Now, the second one is pride, typically obsessing over reviews. So when authors see themselves mentioned in Goodreads or Twitter or whatever, and they just go hog wild and they, tweet a bunch of stuff and go on rants and whatever. Sometimes they'll dox and stalk people if it gets really bad, bully people for bad reviews and stuff like that. This is obviously unacceptable behavior, but I do get getting upset over reviews and ratings. But I'm kind of on the other side of the fence where like I wish someone would give me like pages long bad reviews. Like I would totally hate if someone left me a 1 star with everything that they did not like, down to the detail. Like that would be so awful. Like that wouldn't be useful at all to me as a creator. Don't give me a bad review. Don't give me a really long bad one. That sounded God, that came out really weird. A long bad one. So Kate Corain is a great example of this, where she tried to review bomb a lot of the other authors that were debuting with her in that same year, and it backfired. Like to the point where people that don't even care about books or are in the book sphere knew about this. It was kind of wild to see it, become the front page, for you page thing on TikTok for like a couple days. J.M. Marlin's another classic one, but he was kind of a prick in communities from the get go and just like never learned from his mistakes or ever took advice. So, sucks to suck. The last one is just bigotry, racism, ableism, homophobia in the marketing or in the actual text of the books. And I tend to give less grace to authors or separating the art from the artist because when you're talking about a musician, I feel like there is an understanding to not take everything at face value unless it is presented that way. For an author, there is so much time to think about how you're going to convey these ideas. There are so many people that are going to edit that. There's a lot of people that are going to sample read that. So if it comes out and someone says, "Hey, this is kind of racist. This is kind of homophobic," there's a good chance that that's just how they intended it. You can't really say that was taken out of context or that was misinterpreted because you had hours to think about how it would be interpreted. So you probably just believe what you said. Say it with your chest, if anything. There are a few examples of an author just being super racist and just nuking their career in one day. Lauren M. Davis was scrolling through Twitter one day, and then she saw that an author had a character with sun powers, and she started hurling insults and saying that that girl had plagiarized from her and that she was pursuing legal action. It just made herself look so dumb and racist. It was great. That's a pretty recent example. Jay Kristoff, don't know a whole lot about his book, but people said that when you actually understand the stories of the Jewish faith, he uses them and represents them in a very anti-Semitic way. There was also some tea about him and other authors in like an author space, kind of bullying and blacklisting like authors of color. I'm gonna link a video that explains all this a lot better than I could. There was Sarah J. Maas who tried to promote her book on the same day of the death of Breonna Taylor and try to use this as like a this is so unjust and so terrible. Read this and it'll make it all better kind of way. And yeah, that came off very, very. If I were her agent or her PR, whatever, I would 100% just take your Instagram account and hide the password. Like, what are you actually thinking? Like, what are you thinking, man? I would be losing my mind. Like, that is so dumb. The other one is Brandy Elise. Her book focused a lot on like body image stuff, but then she tried to sell tea as merchandise, which people were like, "Hey, that's a thing that people tend to use when they have body dysmorphia and they're trying to avoid eating and they have eating disorders. Like, what are you thinking?" And this was called out. She's also just like the poster child of not taking criticism well. Now, this one isn't as egregious as the other ones, but Naomi, but Naomi Novik wrote Deadly Education, and in there was a monster called a lock leech. That when you twist your hair can get in there and pretty much just kill you by planting an egg in your brain. Cool idea, actually. The problem with that is that it was written or portrayed that this only happens or happens for the most part to black people with braided hair. When it came out that someone had did a sensitivity read during the publishing, and they had mentioned that, and Naomi Novik kind of just ignored it. That's worse. That's much worse. That makes you look very, very bad. Like there is cluelessness, and then there is ignorance, and it's pretty clear which one she was there. You had the chance. You had a chance to save yourself, and you didn't take it. That's kind of your fault. If you ignore what people say, if you someone points out that, oh, this is problematic, I don't like this, and then you ignore that, then you've proved their point. I think this all kind of boils down to the fact that authors are kind of losers. And I say this is friendly fire. I'm saying this about myself. I spend like 5 hours at a time at a computer screen clicking away. I am basically a gamer. It's just a lot less fun. I do like how the book community, for the most part, will be pretty swift about these kind of things. They won't let that stuff go under the radar and go untalked about. But a lot of the authors that really do the worst damage to their careers didn't have much of a career to really destroy. And a lot of these authors that are pretty big and do get away with some heinous shit. And that kind of sucks. But what can you do about it? Just spread the word. Be a little bit more media literate. I think when people call out problematic things in art and behavior, that it's important that they're honest about that accountability. But accountability can be a lot more difficult when your reasoning is clouded by ego and when your position is pretty safe because of your reputation. There's not really going to be much of a will to change there.